There we go. All right. Well, people of God's delight. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so glad to see you again, and welcome back. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
So I'm Greg Bancroft. This is part 4 of a 5-part series called You Got This, where we're using the language and metaphors of baseball to counter the shame that we experience in everyday life. Today we're going to be talking about the long fall season, but what we've gone over before, just briefly, first session, you remember we talked about how very difficult it is to hit a round ball with a round bat. In fact, it's the most difficult thing to do in all of sports. Little tiny sweet spot on a ball, little tiny sweet spot on a bat, you know, line those two up, hit it where somebody won't catch it or throw you out. And if you did that 3 times out of 10, you'd probably make the Baseball Hall of Fame. But you would have failed 7 times. Twice as many failures as success. Babe Ruth, home run king, right? Led the majors 5 separate seasons in strikeouts. So if you're swinging for the fences, you're probably going to strike out a whole bunch, right? We talked about progress then, not perfection. To go from a 250 hitter to a 300 hitter, 250 is about average, to a 300, Hall of Fame, right? 1 more hit per week, that's it. That's all it takes, 1 more hit per week. Pretty amazing. We talked about shame as not that you're a bad person, but that you're defective. Shame is that sense that I'm not quite good enough. I don't measure up. I can't please other people, and I certainly don't deserve anything. That's the essence of shame. We talked about shame triggers, and you all remember the story when I went into my friend's really nice house for the first time, and how I just froze, and how I worked through that. You know, what was I thinking? What was I saying? What was I doing? Right? And the 3 C's: I'm competent, I'm capable, I'm confident. Right? Calm back down and got engaged in the party, and talked about the stinking thinking that goes on with shame. You have no right to be here. Who do you think you are? That kind of thing, right? Week 2, we talked about Little League affirmation, how absolutely essential it is in life to be marinating in affirmation. We showed each other what it's like. What did you hear when growing up? What does it mean to be a boy? What's it mean to be a girl? You know, tough, strong, you know, aggressive, or sweet and attractive, and all of that. So we set up these artificial distinctions, or these artificial qualities rather, that we never live into. So we set ourselves up to be less than, right? Less than ideal. And we recognize big, little talk. The big talk is the talk that helps us feel affirmed and uplifted and engaged and enhanced and builds relationship, builds community, all that. Little language diminishes us, makes us feel small, tears relationships apart, right? And we said, let's focus on the uplifting and affirming language. And then you remember Lorelei with the bike, right? She was down the bottom, and she was telling herself, you know, I got this. And she looked at me and said, you say that all the time, Papa. And there's a little girl who's marinating in affirmation, who can face scary and challenging situations in the future because she knows, I got this. She's not going to win them all, but she'll win a lot of them. And she can do it with a spirit of courage, not timidity. Week 3, we talked about opening day, Hope Revisited. We looked at the difference between Minnesota and Tennessee. But wherever you are, opening day is a day of renewal, a promise, a hope. Life starts again. And we took a look at Genesis, the first creation story of Genesis, and we saw that all of creation is good. And the day that people show up on the scene, it's very good, right? And that helps form the basis of our theology of Little League affirmation, that all of creation and people, it's good, it's very good. And we looked at some New Testament passages as well that support that. The desire is that we live in peace. And we talked about shalom being that picture of creation, right, where everything fits together the way it's supposed to. That's the peace that is wished upon us, not a timid or fearful heart, but a heart of courage and peace. Excuse me. And we said, hey, if you're hearing other language than that, especially in church, if you're hearing sinner in the hand of an angry God, or totally depraved individual, or something that's demeaning, diminishing, belittling, go someplace else where you get good news, okay? Because that's the good news that we want to focus on. So today we're going to talk about persevering through the long haul season, but for those of you who've been here throughout, did I do a pretty fair summary of the last 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, you want to say, you remember? I love this part because this is where people don't make eye contact. He's going to call on me. Now, I'll leave you alone because you could be volunteered and I won't do that. But we're going to talk about persevering through the long haul season. We've talked about, you all know about Mountaintop Highs, right? We have that expression where, oh gosh, everything's going great, it's just wonderful. It's pretty fun to live in those mountaintop high experiences. Kind of hard to sustain them, right? It's kind of hard to predict them and plan for them, and really difficult to keep that energy level up there. Likewise, there's the emotional valleys, things that happen in life that just, oh man. And depending on the situation, as long as it's not chronic stress, most people can get through those emotional valleys. You know, they suck it up and they can do it, right? As long as it's not constant, like I say. And cultivating a sense of adventure is essential. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about how you can avoid arrival psychology. We'll say more about what that is, but basically arrival psychology is this current situation is not good. It will be really good, or it will be perfect when, if, right? That's arrival psychology. Sets us up for failure. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, and I want to have a little interactive piece here now. Show of hands, who's been married 25 years or more? Okay, and you might keep your hand up because it might, a number of questions you might have 25 years or more. Who's had a friend of 25 years or more? Okay. Who's been a member of a group? It could be a church, book study, social club for 25 years or more. How many have kids or 25 years or older?
Oh, I'm not answering.
Grandkids.
Has anybody have a hobby that you've done for 25 years or more?
Does reading count?
Yeah, right, okay. Any other long-term relationships, maybe work or things like that? Had somebody, not only did they have 35 years at the same company, they had 35 years in the same job. And I'm stunned because I've done so many different things in my life. I can't imagine doing the same thing for 35 years, let alone, oh my gosh. So, God bless her. What would you say is similar about all those long-term relationships? What would you say that, is there a common thread?
Yes,
What?
there is a common.
Which is?
Close group?
We like the same, I don't know, we kind of, you were talking about that Friday, I had a luncheon for my 2 college roommates that we've been Pi Phis for 50, we had to admit it, we pledged when we were 10. But we were Pi Phis for 50 years. 50 years together when we were at the UT freshmen, and we're trying to think what, and when we get back together, I can't put my hand on it. I mean, it's like, it's like we never left UT. I don't know.
Yeah.
The problems are different, but.
Sure. So you've been able to morph through the years and still maintain that
Oh, yeah.
relationship? Huh.
We travel.
Thank you.
Speaking of roommates, I had 2 college roommates in, not this past week, but the week before. One of whom I haven't seen in over 20 years. And the other roommate hadn't seen her since we got married, which was 48 years ago. But it was pick up the conversation like that.
How's that possible?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah,
we do
how
that?
is, and I ask questions when I don't know the answer. It's a great teaching technique, by the way. So, how is that possible? Anybody?
Mutual respect.
Gotta be something like that. Mutual respect.
Know your history.
Know your history.
Yeah, you know you're here. Well, we
I'm
want to do
thinking
better.
maybe, cause you want to, you know, there's something happens.
You like
It just happens.
It just happens. Yeah, I don't know, it's one of those deals, and I wish there was something, you know, that you could identify, cause then you could do that for folks. But I just always wondered, well, how does that happen? I have a friend like that too. We met, oh gosh, probably 40 years ago. And we still to this day have great conversations. We make each other laugh, and we just get into it, you know, like it's never stopped. And they live in Massachusetts now, so we don't see them very much, but we're on the phone, we email and text and so on. And oh, I'm gonna get a little weepy here. He's older than I am by about 15 years, and he's in good shape. But I've seen some decline in the last year or so, and there's going to come a time where he's probably going to die, right? I think he'll die before me. I don't know that for sure, but chances are that he will. And when I thought of that last time we talked, I got so profoundly sad. You know, holy cow, 40 plus years, and we could probably go 50 years, but not much more. And how does that happen? I don't know.
What is the reverse of that though? You know, I was thinking about, just as you said that, there's a reverse, I have a reverse of that. I mean, I see hardly anyone from my high school class.
Well, yeah.
I have a reverse.
I don't know why that is. Maybe it's where you terminate your education or something. I don't know. Because my sister she didn't go to college, and her friends, a lot of them are still from high school days, although some from work and some from other, you know, church experiences or whatever. But that would be my guess. I don't know.
I think those people who are in high school are too old.
Way older than you.
Well,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a friend that we've been friends, she's 10 years older than I am, and we've been friends since, well, it's been over 40 years now. And now when we talk almost every day still,
Wow.
she's in Dallas, but we always say, before I hang up, say, don't you die and leave me.
Wow, no pressure.
But much like baseball and other sports, when you battle through things together with
Yes.
people,
Yeah.
and not in high school, but when you get older,
Yeah.
things are more meaningful. Life presents more things that are serious, and you battle through that with people, and you build relationships because you've been through those things together. They stick with you through the
Yeah,
rest of your life.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a good
yeah,
point.
absolutely. Thanks for that.
Exactly.
Had a hand over here.
Well said. I started the fall of 1960 in a small elementary school in Murfreesboro, 30 people in the class, and I'm still friends and probably email frequently 20 of the 30.
Wow.
That's
I got
amazing.
emailed 3 of them this morning about something.
Wow.
Like,
You didn't have email then.
Huh?
You didn't have email then.
Yeah.
Just never grew up.
And we went through all these teachers, and in high school, the same group, all of us went through the same group. You're talking about battle?
Yeah.
That's the battle in high school.
That's
Yeah.
great.
You know what's really strange about this church is that I grew up in this church, and there are a lot of people that grew up in the church, their children are members of this church, their grandchildren are members of this
Oh, my.
church. Alright, well, I'm like he was. I went to Brookmead, so if you have the community of the people around you for years, which most of my best friends are high school friends, you know, a lot of them are, not most of them, but a lot of them are. But we went to school from elementary school on Brookmead, Brookmead, Hill, Brookmead and Hillwood, we all went to school. But, you know, they're just around all the time,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
talk with them.
very good. Thank you for that. So, now, I've got an assignment for you. You're advising a soon-to-be married group of 20-somethings about to be married. Okay? And because y'all have experience in long-term relationships, and we just confirmed that, and lots of different venues in life, not just marriage, but all kinds of ways, you've got experience of long-term relationships. So I want to make a list with you, if you'll help me. What's one thing they've got to know? The one trick or tip, or what's the one thing you want to say to them? How are you going to make sure they make it to that 25 plus threshold?
Stay with God.
Okay?
Trust God.
Wow, thinking about fast.
Learn how to
Well,
say
that's the
yes,
main
dear.
thing. What'd you say?
Learn how to say yes, dear.
Nothing at all.
You learned that quick, didn't you?
Count to 10.
Have separate
Patient.
bathrooms.
There you go.
Can I make a friendly amendment? Separate sinks?
There.
Yeah.
Very, very, very.
Separate bathrooms.
Patience. Count to 10.
Oh,
Or
okay.
take a deep breath and count.
Never go to bed angry.
Ooh,
Learn to compromise.
okay. Compromise, yeah.
Learn to
Listen.
Listen, okay, good. What else?
Males only on that one, no. Males only, he said, learn to listen. I said,
Males
males only.
In parentheses.
I would say have fun.
Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one.
Laugh.
Yes.
But you know what I think too? I think from the very beginning, when you start out, there's got to be a spark there. There has got to be, because as you're going through these 25 years plus, you've got to think, you know, if you tell me one more time how to do something.
Just as an example, not that it ever
Not that it
happens.
ever happens. If you tell me, and I think it was last Sunday that at that fourth time, we had a little conversation about it. But when you,
Okay.
Do it the first time. You ever want to do it?
All right.
Bob, I want to talk to you afterwards.
yeah, but you've gotta have that spark, because
Yeah.
when you are going through something that's tough, you think back of that spark, and that
Yeah.
spark gets you through.
Deb, there's another side to this.
Yeah,
When a guy tells you he's gonna do something,
uh-huh.
you don't have to remind him every 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, that's a good one.
How about this?
The rules are not equal.
Apologize for the rules.
The rules are not equal
Yeah.
for women and men. They aren't equal. If mom's
Yeah.
not happy,
Yeah.
everybody's
Nobody's happy.
miserable.
Yeah.
If dad's not happy.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
for the most part,
So I put down, forgive and forget, apologize.
And forget.
And what?
Gotta forget hard, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
You have to have patience.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Whoops.
I failed all those.
Well, tolerance. Yeah. How about this? Open-mindedness?
I got
You
one.
like flexibility?
I got another one for women.
Yeah, forget and forgetful. Yeah, you know, I worked with a couple one time, and I always ask, are we doing divorce counseling or marriage counseling? Because they're two different tracks. And they said marriage counseling. They wanted to heal this relationship. We got into it. I'll tell you what, their backyard was so full of hatchets. I don't know how they could grow grass. Something would come up, they'd reach back there, they'd grab a hatchet, they'd start winging hatchet at each other, and it's like, whoa. I mean, holy cow, if you're gonna have that many hatchets, if you're gonna keep a list, that's not gonna work. You gotta forget this stuff. Oh, and that's another thing. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
Pick your battles.
Yeah, pick your battles.
That's good.
Skip always tells me to simmer.
And if he was anywhere but the South, it would be simmer. Yeah, well, you gotta pick your battles. Don't sweat the small stuff. And I had people tell me one time, it's all small stuff. It really is all small stuff.
Yeah.
Try to love their relatives.
Well, you know,
It's all
there's-
right.
yeah. Well, and I'm gonna add friends and relatives.
Oh, yeah.
You should love them. You don't always have to like them, but you should
Well,
love
there
them.
you go. Thank you. Yeah,
Well,
right. So, I don't know where, but appreciation. Yeah, I'm just gonna squeeze some of these in here. Okay, so, maybe one more and then let's move on. Anything else you wanna add to this list? It's a pretty good
What
list.
could be left out?
What?
What could be left out?
Yeah, well, I don't know,
I
but-
think they both have to be independent.
Oh, okay.
Because marriages can struggle sometimes when one is too dependent on the other, they bring nothing to the table, and that can cause some issues.
You know, that's so true. I used to tell people the task of marriage is learn how to be separate together. Yeah. How to be separate together. So, looking forward to something, having a sense of wonder, having a sense of adventure, growing, never giving up. I like what somebody said one time, angels fly, or angels take them, hang on, let me get it right. Angels fly because they take themselves lightly. Okay, I love that. So you gotta show up. Every day you gotta show up. You gotta be there. You gotta be there for your spouse, you gotta be there for your family, for work, you gotta show up. I mean, that's step one. You gotta be there physically, emotionally, and so on. You gotta dig in. There may be challenges, and we need you to contribute to the solution. You gotta show up, you gotta dig in, and you gotta suck less. You gotta swing. We don't expect perfection. There'll be progress. The more we practice, we'll learn how to communicate. When Sally and I were first married, we didn't know how to talk to each other. Of course, we were babies. We were sophomores in college. I mean, honest to God, what were you thinking? And almost 50 years ago, but she'd lock herself in the bathroom because she'd be crying, and we couldn't talk, and we'd be through the door. And I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to work. You know, wow. So we figured that out, thank God. It's like, I mean, so many things we just figured out. Remember those cans of Chungking chow mein? Did y'all ever see those? They had the thing on top. We used to open that up, heat it on the stove, and then eat out of the can. We've gotten a lot better. We make some really great stir fry. Y'all should come over sometime. And we actually put it on a plate. Plates probably don't match, they're chipped, but we don't care about that. That's not our deal. But oh my gosh, the stuff that we've gone through. Because I think we just wanted this to work, and there was that spark. I tell Sally all the time, thank God you're married to the funniest guy I know. And she's heard that a million times, and she tries not to laugh, tries not to roll her eyes, and I go, you're smiling, I can see it. Anyway, that's an old joke. So that's what you would tell this group of 25-year-olds, let's say, about to be married. Here's how you get to a long-term marriage, these kinds of things. Bonus points, extra credit. I don't know the answer to this, that's why I'm asking. How often do you think newly married couples, you always,
Choir.
sing beautifully, I know you will.
How long do you want? Say that, your question again.
Pardon me?
Repeat your question.
Oh, yeah. So, how often or how likely is it, do do you think that couples about to be married are gonna hear this list?
I'm going to what?
Hear that
You're
list.
gonna hear this list? Never? Raise your hand if your pastor shared this list with you.
I got the go to bed, don't go to bed angry, I remember that.
Well, yeah, don't go to bed angry. I remember that one.
Buy a good mattress, that was the other one.
The what?
Buy a good mattress.
Oh, really?
Yeah, remember?
Okay.
That was Bob
And a
Spain.
couch.
Yeah.
Bob Spain, I don't think we did it.
Yeah, well, I don't remember this, but this is an I may tear this off and give it to your pastor. I don't know if Sam uses it or who does most of the pre-marriage counseling around here, but I think that's an important list in mind. How do you maintain a long-term relationship? None of this is rocket science. It's just, do I want to do this or not? You know, am I going to do this or not? Now, I can remember some meals, for example, that were just absolutely spectacular down the road, not when we were first married, that were absolutely spectacular. I can tell you the wine we had, the presentation of it, I mean, just great. And I can tell you some really bad meals, stuff that was burned, stuff that was, you know, dry, oh, just awful. The spices didn't work.
Don't mention those, okay?
Yeah, and y'all mentioned MREs before. God bless you. They really do serve a purpose, and they're full of nutrition and all that kind of stuff. But I can tell you in the field, the only thing I remember good about those were the chocolate-covered graham crackers and the dehydrated peaches. The rest of it, I'd rather eat the packaging. But that was just me. That was in the field and all kinds of other stuff. So anyway, I don't remember the day in and day out. I mean, 46 plus years, you know, and then we were dating 2 years before that. So all that time, all those meals, I can't tell you half a dozen of them. But I know if I didn't eat those, I probably wouldn't be here, right? Because I didn't live on just those really spectacular meals, and I surely didn't live on those crummy meals. It was all the stuff in between that sustained us. So I had a colleague who played in the prestigious Cape Cod League. Anybody ever hear of that? Cape Cod League? A very prestigious minor league team, or league. A lot of major league players come from that league, and it's really quite a coup to be selected to play in that league. And he was on his way until he blew out his ankle. He ended up playing most of the game with a fractured ankle, but Mr. Tough Guy just thought if I taped it up, I'll be okay. Well, he blew it out and shot his chances. It's all right, he's doing great now. But I learned a lot about what it would be like playing in the minor leagues from him. The road trips, you know, little dinky town after little dinky town, bus, sometimes the air conditioning didn't work, you know, a bunch of sweaty guys on it, and, you know, going from town to town. Ugh. There was a guy, I can't imagine this, but he was an open-mouthed chewer and he smacked. I'm not sure how that's possible. One or the other is gross together. It's just, wow. And he would try to get away from him, but still hear him. Even to this day, he can conjure up that memory and almost throw up. It's just, you know, wow. And you're with that guy day in and day out. That would grate on your nerves, wouldn't it? The heat, the humidity, being hungry, especially when they're double headers, and you really didn't have time to eat in between. So he would make a baseball burrito. He'd chew bubble gum, flatten it out, soften up with snuff, put that in there, roll it up, and chew on that for most of the afternoon. That would stave off hunger. Oh my God. Yeah. And he had to focus on, because if he allowed himself to drift, especially the guy that's chewing, you know, I mean, he would just lose it. So I had to learn how to focus. Sometimes it got down to focusing on the next pitch. Sometimes it came down to focusing on the next out. Sometimes it was, what am I going to do when the ball comes to me? Blocking out everything. Just when I get the ball, and he would picture himself throwing it to a base, he would picture himself diving for a fly ball. He would focus, right, on that. And he had a sense of adventure. He still does. He's a great guy. I went to his very first play with him. He was a grown man. He was married, working, doing well, and we invited him to go to a play. And he'd never been to a live performance. He was on the edge of his seat the whole time. He just loved it. Go figure, you know? Who would have thought? But he always has this sense of adventure. And he'd look forward to the next city. He'd look forward to the next ballpark, the dugout, the concession stands. I mean, everything about it. He would just look forward to it. Everything was an adventure to him. And he's a country kid from Tennessee, so I guess a lot of things would be an adventure to him. And God bless him. It was fun for him. He's still like that. And then he would support his team because he would want their support. So in the dugout, in the field, wherever it was, he was positive, he was upbeat, he consciously decided to support his team. And his personality, his spirit was infectious. So they would support each other in the dugout and on the field. And it was just great. So I say that because that's the spirit of building a long-term relationship. Now, arrival psychology. When we traveled on road trips, we did a lot of road trips when the kids were little. And I'm talking road trips. I'm not talking popping down to Chattanooga. I'm talking cross country. We had one car that had air conditioning one time. The rest of them did not. With me? So, and we didn't have those little fancy screens with the headphones. And I hear people, you know, they're going to try to gut it out to Chattanooga with the screens and the headphones. Oh, please. You know, let
That
me
was
tell you.
before seat belts
Yeah.
and car seats, because I can remember riding to Lawrenceburg, going to my grandparents, laying up in the back window. In the 69 XL, looking out the back window, you know, if my dad slams on the brakes, I'm on the hood. But it was fun.
That was
Yeah,
a
I
big
know,
deal to
I
ride in
know.
the back.
Well, we would have these cake pans with a snap-on lid, and we'd put coloring books and crayons and different things in there. And the theory was they would take the thing out and then use the cake pan as a laptop, you know, or a lap desk, whatever. Never worked quite like that because stuff got everywhere. Our daughter loved tape, still loves tape. She would rip it off tape. There's tape everywhere. Our son liked Post-it notes, so he'd scribble on Post-it note and he'd stick them everywhere, including all over his little sister. And he'd be in the back covered with tape and Post-it notes. And we would sing silly songs. We'd play license plate games and all that kind of stuff. And then one time we made the stupid mistake of giving them each a nickel for every white horse they saw, and it costed about $15. It was a lot of, it was like a herd of white horses. Who did that? You know. Anyway, so it wasn't that the destination was really the point. It was the travel in between that was the point. So we would stop at a site, and it's almost, kids say this is true. I don't think it is, because I don't remember it. I really don't. But they said Dad would drive 50 miles out of his way to see the second largest ball of string in the world.
Good for you.
Not the first, but you would do that? Yeah. Well,
My father did that.
but I mean, what if he did? I mean, how big would the ball be? I mean, that'd just be really cool. Anyway, and I'm driving, you're not. So, anyway, we need to wrap up here quickly, but I would, in my counseling situation, I would see people who had arrival psychology. And they didn't enjoy the journey, or they were not enjoying the journey. They didn't have a sense of adventure. They were not engaged in the current process of living, right? They were only focused on, I'll be okay, like I would hear students say, I'll be okay when I graduate. I'll be okay when I get a job. I would hear parishioners say, I'll be okay when I get married, and here was the corollary to that. I know he'll stop drinking as soon as we get married.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
No.
get married.
Yeah, if I could only get that job, if I could get that house, if I could get that raise and so on, then I'll be happy. He won't argue as much, she won't be so crabby. I mean, everything was in the future, missing the here and now.
How do you
That's-
counter that?
Well, you counter that with this. The process has to be the relationship. That's what's got to make the relationship. You're not going to build a long-term relationship with just those mountaintop experiences. And if you live in those emotional valleys all the time, you're going to just tear each other apart. You have to learn how to live with this kind of stuff. And this doesn't sound dull to me at all. Not at all. Forgive, forget, be forgetful. Apologize, laugh, have fun together, appreciate each other, have a spark, be patient with each other. This isn't dull and boring. It takes some work, but it's not dull and boring, But a lot of people want that mountaintop experience where they just wallow in the emotional valley, because that's what they're used to. Right? And then when you're wallowing in the emotional valley, you don't have to take responsibility for the relationship, do you? You can be a victim. Woe is me. Look, poor me, right? I don't have to engage in this relationship. I don't have to be part of this. But if you are part of the team, then we need you to show up. We need you to dig in. And we need you to suck less. You don't have to be perfect. Just suck less. So it's the long haul that builds the season, the relationship, and its Little League affirmation that is its fuel. I just want to read a little bit about that routine. Baseball is terribly routine. Every day there are basics to drill, time in the batting cage to complete, equipment and uniforms to maintain, as well as fields to prepare. And at the same time, each game is unique, special, and meaningful in some way to someone. I've seen people get engaged at games. Kids go crazy chasing a foul ball. Spouses kiss on a giant screen. Babies asleep in a blanket at their first game, and grandpas help grandchildren learn how to score a game, a memory that will stick with those kids forever. Tonight's game might be the only one where the 28th player in Major League history hit for the cycle. That's a single, a double, a triple, and a home run. Right? It's very rare. More likely, it's the one where friends realize just how much their lives are enriched by each other's companionship, even if they never say so. That's the long haul season. And I would add to this list, because this reminds me a lot of Little League affirmation. I would say, atta girl, atta boy, you got this. We have a minute or two before we have to leave. Is there anything that somebody wants to comment or question?
You did a good job.
Thank you. All right, well, next week, we're going to talk about money and shame, and the subtitle is The Joneses Don't Live Here. Okay, so y'all have a good week.
We got our prayer
We
here.
got our prayer guy.
Prayer guy's back.
All right.
Hey, tell everybody what we say, then we'll say it.
We say the mitzvah from the Old Testament, but we kind of understand it from a New Testament perspective. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent one from another. So let's say that together. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent one from another. Amen.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
You're
Good
welcome.
luck.
Thank you. Oh, and totally self-serving. Some of you asked about Betsy's Day at the Game. I do have copies, and I can bring more next week, but this is a children's book that won a Mom's Choice Gold Award, and it's been endorsed by Penny Marshall, Disney illustrator. Oh,
How was your trip?
Fine, thank you. You just walked right in here like you could walk in here.
I know.
excuse me.
You were so good.